You know that feeling, right? You're in a conversation and suddenly the talking just stops. And in that silence, you can feel things get weird. Well, today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the hidden social rules behind silence. We're decoding what it all means and why it feels the way it does.
All right, let's start with something we've all been through, probably more times than we'd like to admit, the awkward silence. It's that universal human experience, that sudden conversational black hole that just makes you want to disappear.
But here's the crazy part. We're only talking about a gap of, 2, maybe 3 or 4 seconds. So why does that tiny little sliver of time feel so incredibly long and honestly so uncomfortable?
I mean, think about it. The exact same pause can mean completely different things depending on who you're with. If it's a stranger, that silence feels like a massive disconnect, like something's gone wrong. But with a good friend, that same pause can feel comfortable. It can be a moment of connection where you don't even need words.
So you'd probably guess that friends have fewer of these long pauses, right? That their conversations are smoother? Well, a 2023 study from the NIH found something that is totally backwards from what you'd expect. Turns out friends actually have more long gaps in their conversations than strangers do. So what is going on here?
And this right here is the big paradox we're going to solve. For strangers, a long pause feels like a bug in the system. But for friends, that same pause can actually be a feature, a sign of a deeper connection, a moment to think, or just to enjoy being together. How is that possible?
To really get to the bottom of this, we have to look at the powerful, unwritten rules that are running in the background of all our interactions. And lucky for us, there's a theory that explains this whole thing perfectly. It's called expectancy violations theory, or EVT for short. And at its heart, it's all about what happens when somebody breaks one of those social rules you didn't even know you had. It's basically a blueprint for understanding our reactions when people do something unexpected.
So here's how it works. It's like this little 3-step calculation that our brain does in a split second. First, we have an expectation, like, hey, a conversation should flow. Second, a violation happens. The other person pauses for too long. And third, we appraise it and react. We judge them. And that third step, the judgment part, that's where it all gets really interesting.
Okay, so let's take this idea and plug it right back into our mystery of the awkward silence. Because it turns out whether we see that silence as a good thing or a bad thing has almost nothing to do with the silence itself.
Yep, that cringy, awkward feeling isn't really about the pause. It's about our snap judgment of the person who created that pause. It's a social math problem we solve without even realizing it.
And that math is based on a key idea from this theory: communicator reward valence. I know, it sounds super academic, but it's actually really simple. It's just our internal scorecard for a person. Do we like them? Are they funny? Do they make us feel good? That's the reward value. So let's put it all together. A friend? They're a high reward person. So when they violate our expectation and get quiet, we give them the benefit of the doubt. We might think, oh, they're just thinking, or that was so funny it left them speechless. But a stranger is low reward. When they do the exact same thing, we're way more likely to judge it negatively. We think, ugh, this is awkward. Or are they rude? Same silence, totally different scorecard. Okay, so that explains how we judge the silences we get from other people, but what about the silences we create ourselves? Let's switch gears and look at when silence isn't an accident, but a choice, and you'll see it's all tied up in our fear of being on the other side of that negative judgment. Come on, we've all been there. That moment you're about to say something, share how you really feel, push back on an idea, and you just don't. You choose to stay quiet. This isn't about the rhythm of conversation. It's a deep psychological calculation. On the outside, it just looks like you're hesitating for a second. But if we peel that first layer back, we find justification. These are all the logical reasons we give ourselves for not speaking up, like, it's not the right time, or, you know what, it's not worth the argument.
But what's hiding under all that logic? What's the real reason? Well, if you go one layer deeper, you find the real engine driving the whole thing: fear of perception. It's that raw, powerful fear of being judged, of being misunderstood, of being seen in a bad light.
Which brings us to this, the pyramid of emotional silence. This is a model from a pretty recent study, and it maps out that whole internal journey. It starts with the behavior on the surface, goes down through our logical justifications, and lands on that deep-seated fear of perception at the core. And that study was crystal clear about what the most powerful force in this pyramid is. The number one reason we choose to stay silent isn't about logic or timing or anything else. It's our fundamental fear of how other people will see us.
So, we've looked at the silence we get from others and the silence we choose for ourselves. What does this all mean? Let's tie it all together and see how this plays out in our actual day-to-day lives.
Think of this as your new social toolkit. First, remember that our social world runs on these unspoken rules and expectations. Second, who breaks a rule is often way more important than what rule they broke. Third, a surprise from someone you like and trust can actually be a good thing. It can bring you closer. And finally, that decision to stay silent, it's a complex trade-off where you're weighing the social and emotional risks of speaking up.
And I want to leave you with this amazing line from that NIH study. It just captures the whole idea so well. It says that with friends, those long gaps aren't empty. They're full of meaning. They're moments to think and feel and just be.
So, yeah, the rules of conversation might be invisible, but how we react to them is very, very real. And when it's your turn and you choose to be silent, that choice is saying something powerful. The only question left is, what do you want your silence to say?